working on some laptop reviews. Lots of laptop reviews. As part of that, I have one of these left over. This here is the Lenovo Legion 5. It's a 15-inch one. It's some light here. 15-inch Lenovo Legion. Very cool. It's the most budget Lenovo Legion for 2025, and it's actually my favorite Legion for 2025. I think it's one of the best laptops Lenovo's made in a very long time. This one here is an Intel model. I have, over the past week, acquired all of the models, except one. So I've had the Intel with the 255HX with the 5060, Intel with the 255HX with the 5070. I've also had access to the AMD 260 and the AMD 350, so different CPU options, different GPU options, different pairings. And in this video, I'm going to talk about them and just compare them. Okay, so here we are. There's a bunch of SKUs. I don't know why they do this. They make it confusing, but there's the Intel ones here, and there's the two AMD. So AMD, we have, for some reason, two SKUs, then they're different, but they're not also different. I've already done a little bit of a review kind of thing where I talked about this, but there's the AMD one here with the AMD 260 CPU. It's an 8-core processor, 16 thread. It's actually based on the 7840HS and 8845HS, same chip. This one here you can get with either a 5050 or a 5060. Today is the only one that I'm not going to do is a 5050. I just didn't buy it. Here we're getting it the 260 and the 5060. There's another AMD model here. The difference here is that it has an AMD 350, which is a generation ahead. Very similar, 8-core, 16 thread, not a big difference. We'll go over it in this video though. They're a little different. The main difference here is that this one doesn't have access to a 5050, but it does have access to a 5070. These are H-branded processors in both cases. They're not going to be as high wattage from AMD. They're still going to offer good performance, good efficiency, etc., but they don't have the same kind of peak performance as the Intel ones. The Intel ones you can get with an Intel 255HX, which is what I'm going to be testing here today on both of the Intel ones. The 255HX is an incredible CPU. It offers very, very, very high peak performance, very high peak performance. It parks well for battery, that kind of stuff. And I mean, in gaming tasks, we'll see today whether that makes a huge difference, but when it comes to just pure CPU performance, it is much faster. They do have these, which are stupid. I'm not even interested in reviewing this. They have the same laptop and they put in a 14th gen, 14700HX. Don't buy that. Like, these are the same class of GPU, like to the 7 tier, and this is just better in every way. It's just as fast, if not faster, and is much more efficient and offers significantly better battery life. So this, if you see this one, 14th gen, 14700, just do not buy this unless it's like so cheap. Like, I'm talking half the price of the other ones. I wouldn't buy this before I would buy AMD or Intel. So don't buy this one. This is out. 14th gen. Get out of here. Stick around for bonus content. Legion 7i and Legion 5i Pro. Okay, so we're going to do some Cinebench runs now. We're going to do it on all of them. We'll have the scores, of course, to see what they get, but I do want to look at, throttling and wattages, because that's also an important factor here, and noise. So we're going to come here, and we're going to start the run under performance mode. Let's get the peak performance here and the peak wattages here. Completely silent right now, just to get that out of the way. So here now this CPU is, I guess it will be set around 100 in terms of its peak. Wattage here, peak was 87, and it looks like we're sitting at about 75. It'll fan up if it needs to, so I think we're probably going to be fairly static. The AMD CPU, I don't think it will maintain 80 consistently. That's probably its boost, but maybe. Depends how long the power mode is set for. And we'll just take a peek here. If you close down hardware info, of course you'll get better performance because it'd be less CPU tasks, but we can just do it like this. So that's pretty good actually. 17,000. Yeah, I mean, it's a good CPU, very good CPU. Okay, so the last step here is we're going to go into silent mode and we're going to hit run here. This is because I want to see what the CPU can do under its lowest in terms of noise and more wattages, kind of see what we can get out of it, and then what those wattages translate to performance. They are very efficient chips. To be honest, they're all very efficient chips. Okay, so now to just look at some of these Cinebench scores, we have the three 5i machines over here, AMD, and Intel, And then we have the two bigger ones. We have the Legion 5i Pro, and then we have the Legion 7i over here. Now, Intel over here, or AMD over here, you can see the scores are pretty similar. The AMD 260 and the 350, you're getting very, very similar scores. This is the average of a bunch of runs. I mean, I'd consider them almost exactly the same, and that's generally what is found just from these chips, that the AMD 350 is able to essentially keep up with the 260 when it comes to professional stuff like CPU tasks, rendering, that kind of stuff. They're very, very, very close. It does fall behind, you'll see in a minute, when it comes to just pure gaming. It's not quite as effective as a gaming CPU, but when it comes to CPU type tasks, it is still very good. I mean, it's just the architecture, what they do with it. It's a very good CPU. These scores are respectable. They're not nearly as high as the Intel ones, but they're still good. I mean, 17,000 is nothing to sneeze at. These are very good scores. Really highlights the fact that these things have good cooling overall. So you're not going to fall behind when you're doing CPU tasks. These will be good for many years to come. And remember, these are just H or HS branded chips. They are not the XHX branded, which is part of it. Over here, though, moving up to the Intel, we do have the 255HX. Obviously, a huge jump in performance over here. Essentially, not quite double, but getting there. It's a big jump here. The 255HX just has, I mean, it's going to do incredibly well in CPU-heavy tasks like rendering, code compile, compression, that kind of stuff. It's a very, 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 very good CPU. The nice thing is it also is quite efficient, too. So when you lower it down to silent mode, it doesn't lose most of its performance like previous generations of Intel. So that's good to see here. Moving over then, of course, over to the 5i Pro. This is the biggest one here, 275HX. It's able to really stretch its legs here, 37,000. And that same CPU in the 7i is doing lower. It's still good, I mean, but it is 10% lower. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that, this is a much thinner laptop, less thermal headroom, so it's going to not perform as well. Now, what I do expect here, move this over here. Remember, this CPU here is available in this chassis as well. So in that case, what I'd probably assume, can't say for sure, but what I'd probably assume is if we took this CPU over here and you got that variant, you'd probably get similar scores. I find that the 5i 15-inch and the 7i have pretty similar performance. They have the same wattages on the GPU and CPU, and they seem to perform very well thermally. They both do very well and very similar. So I'd probably expect something like this here. So then you need to make the decision if you want to go with the Intel HX. Do you really want to spend more to get the 275HX? I don't see a lot of these machines around, so I haven't seen them on sale very often. It's up to you. If they're very close in price, sure. But I don't think I'd pay like 10, 15, or 20% more for such a small bump in CPU when both of them are very, very, very good. Okay, so let's look at them all compared in a nice infographic kind of thing, side by side. No bar charts. Sorry, buds. I don't do the bar charts. Anyways, so AMD 260 over here plus the 5060. We can see that this is, I mean, I guess technically the worst overall score, 12,267. The CPU here, as you can see on the AMD in performance mode, is actually technically faster than the AMD 350. That makes sense. The AMD 350 is equal or so when it comes to more like CPU tasks like rendering and compression, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to gaming, it is technically a little bit slower. It won't really matter much in gaming unless you're very CPU heavy in your games, but really at these resolutions, at 1600p, it won't really make a difference. If you drop this thing down to 1200p, it might make a little difference. But you can see here, I mean, the 5060 is not going to be able to outperform the 5070, obviously. And so what happens here is this system here actually is more performant overall. It's just, it has the better GPU. CPU is not as important here, and the GPU is faster, so it just does better, right? Popping over here, we do have the Intel variants, and we have the like for like here. So here we have the 5060, and you can see the graphics are basically the same. Right? Doesn't make a huge difference. CPU is technically faster over here, 13,500. So it's going to give you, I mean, it is 30% faster. So, but in gaming, it doesn't make a huge difference, right? You can see that here. Again, in some type of environments where you're doing heavy CPU stuff, it is going to make a huge difference. This is a way better CPU here. The 255HX is a way better CPU for CPU heavy tasks. But in gaming, it all is going to come down to, like, all of these are good CPUs. They all have good CPUs. So what happens there is it really does come down to the GPU. That makes a huge difference here. And so as a result here, we can see that the end scores are basically very similar. Very, very, very similar. Then jumping over here to the AMD and Intel on the 5070, it's the same type of thing where the graphics are close. Technically, this is a little bit slower, but I think it's probably just run-to-run variance, maybe thermals, that kind of stuff, whatever. It's very close. And the GPU and the CPU here is way faster. Like, this is a considerably faster CPU here, but the actual game scores, it doesn't make a huge difference, right? A little bit, but not much. Again, if you are doing very CPU heavy stuff, lower resolution esports stuff, it might make a little bit of a difference, honestly, but it's going to be more for when you're doing heavy CPU tasks, video editing, rendering, code compile, all that kind of stuff. That's where this massive CPU is going to come in play more than in gaming. So really, I mean, if you're looking at comparing prices here, let's come in here, let's switch this color here. Let's say, you know, your best option to get into a 5070 is this one, because this costs a lot less than this. Well, personally, I would say get the 5070 here, get this 5070, and the weaker CPU, rather than getting the more powerful CPU and the weaker GPU, because as you can see here, like, these are going to be similar prices, right? We can see that here. This is actually technically worse. So better CPU, worse GPU, better GPU, worse CPU. You're always going to want to pick the GPU first, because these are all very good CPUs. So this is CPU is always number one. A GPU is always number one, no matter what. Unless you're doing very CPU heavy tasks. So if you're doing a video editing, code compile, that kind of stuff, then you can switch that up. So this is going to be for gaming, right? Where GPU is number one. If you're doing, you know, heavy CPU stuff, then of course CPU, like video editing, that kind of stuff, then of course CPU is number one. It just depends what you're doing, right? Now let's clean this up here real quick. And then we have the bonus content over here, the 7i 275HX with the 5070. We can see the score. It's only slightly better than the little brother, right? The 16-inch versus the 15-inch, because they're, you know, the same GPU basically, and you're getting almost the exact same scores. There's almost no difference there whatsoever. Run-to-run variance, almost exactly the same. So there's really no difference there. There is a fairly decent difference in the CPU, right? 13,583, 16,803. So a pretty big difference, but once again, as I said, when it comes to gaming, it's not that important. It will make a little bit of a difference, but not a huge difference, right? This will be faster in CPU loaded stuff here. So that's where it is. A lot of what you're paying for here is the premium chassis, you know, all metal design, 17-inch, super sleek, super everything nice. But if you're looking for bang for your buck dollar, I mean, between the two of these, in gaming, they're basically the same. And in some ways, I actually find this system actually has better cooling. So in some cases, under pure CPU load, they're actually closer than you think. So I mean, best bang for your buck, interestingly here, it's really tough to pick between these different options. Now the bonus content is the 5i Pro, which is the cheapest way from Lenovo to get into a 5070 Ti. It's not nearly as premium as this model up here, right? It's kind of like a bigger version of these two. I actually don't like it as much in terms of the chassis, but it's way faster. So the CPU here is essentially exactly the same as the premium one here, giving it a nice powerful CPU, obviously, but the GPU is it's a monster, right? Like 13,854, 18,000. So it's a much faster GPU. So it really comes down to what you're, this is a tough question, I'm sorry. It just comes down to what you want. You know, the cheapest way to get in, period, is going to be this one here. It's just by far the cheapest way to get in. It's going to give you good performance. Like, these are all in the same realm of one another. Of course, you know, if you want to get into a 5070, of course, the cheapest way to get in is over here. So the AMD actually does offer better just value, gaming value for sure, because they are not always, but they're typically cheaper machines I've found. And so you're able to get in at a lower price. But if you do really benefit from those CPU tasks, I mean, you might want to jump up here. I find this one to be a little bit of a harder sell, the 5060 over here, unless it's on a really good sale. Everything is worth price, right? If you can find a really good sale, sure. But I find this one to be a little bit of a tough one because it's just not as nice of a pairing. This guy here is really nice. And this is the one that I'm keeping for myself, I think. So I have so many of these laptops. I think I'm keeping this one for myself because it does have just, you know, that good GPU performance, but then it also does offer excellent CPU performance for where it's needed. You know, this one is the premium pick. Of course, it's a lovely, beautiful machine here. It's just such a lovely machine and good performance overall. And if you don't care about, you know, so much the, you know, it's not an ugly machine by any means, but it's a little bit more plasticky, not quite as premium feeling. It's just most powerful. And it can be a little expensive, but I got it for a good price. Silent mode. I love silent mode because it runs way quieter, and all of these have good silent modes. This is actually the loudest silent mode, which kind of makes sense, probably followed by this, and then the other ones all kind of sound exactly the same. And you can see here, it does kind of even the playing field a little bit, right? So the GPU, 9,600 for the 5060, 10,800. So it still is faster, but we're only looking at about 10% faster, not like, what was it up here? 15, maybe even 20 a little bit here. Down here, we're at about 10%. So they do scale pretty well. But I found that when we do the Cyberpunk tests, that silent mode, it can actually get this thing, you know, up to, for example, where you're able to get 60 FPS, whereas over here you're only getting, for example, 50, and that can make a big difference, that extra silent mode. Now the CPUs, they're all kind of same idea, right? The AMD ones do well. They do very, very well. And interestingly, in 2025, 2026, Intel is such a goat when it comes to CPUs all of a sudden. They just flipped it. They took the Uno reverse card and just was like, threw it into AMD's face, where all of a sudden Intel offers not only the better performance, but it also has excellent efficiency as well. Look at this. Look at this efficiency. It's crazy. So good. So good. So we can see here it's just a very efficient system overall. The 5070 Ti, of course, still is 30% ahead. So it's your pick. I find that Legions in general all have very good silent mode. All of them have very good silent mode. It's your choice. I often run my stuff in silent mode. And we can see here on this this is the graphics score on the 5070 Ti in silent, 13,400. It's not much behind full bore performance on a 5070, right? Okay, so here we are in Cyberpunk 2077. We'll just kind of hang out here on the AMD 260 by 5060. Performance mode here, it's been running for a little while. Wattage on the GPU, as expected, 90 to 100. Heavier CPU game, just the way that it is. Doing just fine. CPU running at 40 watts here, and we're getting just shy of 60 FPS here. Let's just check our settings so we can have it uniform across the board. So we'll come in here and we're going to go up to high. DLSS, unbalanced. High DLSS, unbalanced. And now we can see a pretty big jump. Ultra, because this is the 5060. I want to compare it to 5072 and see if there's any benefits. So 50 Ultra now, and DLSS unbalanced again. This is where we were in the first place. So big jump between high and ultra, but you can choose both. Noise here, under full. Okay, now we're on the 255HX with the 5060. Right, so it's basically exactly the same. Even the watts on the CPU, like this CPU, as we know, can use more watts, but doesn't need to. So, and essentially we're getting the exact same performance. So, that extra CPU is going to be very useful in some things. CPU heavy tasks, of course, lower resolutions. If you lower resolutions and you're playing competitive games or something and going for max frame rate, sure. And CPU heavy tasks, rendering, like doing video editing itself, code compile, that kind of stuff. CPU, of course, is going to be more important, and it will be much faster here. But in just gaming scenarios, in these type of games, even CPU heavy games, which is why I did Cyberpunk, not going to be a big difference until you really start to increase the settings. Now I'm curious what the silent would do here. Okay, so this is high. Right, we can see there. Very similar performance. Even a CPU heavy game, right? I mean, you need to realize the 260 and the 350, especially at a higher resolution like 1600p, it's not going to cause problems with a 5050 or 5060. I mean, you're going to have to really start to increase the GPU. Okay, here we are on the AMD machine, the Ryzen 350 based one. Okay, so we can see here, I have to do it a little different because Afterburner doesn't necessarily have the things, but we can see here the wattage is 30, same idea. Temperature is pretty good, actually. I mean, the 350 is a fairly efficient CPU. So we'll go up to Ultra here, DLSS on balanced, so same settings, and see where we're at. So about 10 more FPS, which is about 13 or 14% more performance, which makes sense, right? GPU is actually pulling slightly more watts, just ever so slightly more, and that is partially because the CPU is more efficient. This is a generation ahead in terms of the CPU. The AMD 260 is actually it's technically a 7840HS, so it's actually a fairly old CPU. It's just a good CPU. This is an AMD 350, which is 2025 CPU. So rather than being a 2.5-ish or 3 even year old refresh, this is a newer CPU. So I mean, it's up to you whether you think that's worth it to go with the more powerful GPU. It's your choice. Same VRAM and everything. A little quieter, I think. Yeah, it's a little quieter. Interesting. Very interesting. It's a little bit quieter. Okay, and here we are on the Intel 255HX with the 5070. You can see here it's running more or less the same as the AMD variant with the similar GPU. Margin of error frames. And this kind of reemphasizes what I was saying about the time spy score being so, more influenced by the GPU than anything. The CPU here is pulling, similar type watts overall and giving you similar type performance. GPU is pulling similar type watts, giving a similar type performance. Because we're not in a CPU limited scenario here, or at least not this specific game and this specific resolution, we're not having any problems with the GPU or the CPU or anything like that. It's just going to basically perform the same. Of course, if you need the CPU performance for other stuff outside of this game, or a lower resolution, that kind of stuff, of course, maybe the CPU is going to be a little more important, rendering, video editing, that kind of stuff. But in pure gaming tasks, it's, the 5060 AMD versus Intel, basically the same, and the same goes for the 5070. But bonus content. Okay, and here we have the Intel 275HX and the 5070 and the Legion 7i, the slim, and that nice white chassis, and it's doing well. 70 watts, 70 FPS, doing very well. Pulling a lot of watts on the GPU. CPU is doing pretty well as well. Lots of NPCs here now. Okay, bonus content. 5070 Ti equipped Legion 7i, Legion 5i Pro, only because why not? Here we are on the big boy, the Legion with the 5070 Ti, 275HX, and we can see obviously a big jump in performance here, up to 90 FPS here. It's a pretty big jump obviously in performance, even over the 7i, which was the highest of the other ones. That one was about 4 or 5 higher than the smaller 15-inch ones, which makes sense. It's a higher wattage overhead. This one here has way higher wattage. You can see 135 to 140 on the GPU. CPU is pulling more as well. It's just allocating more. It just has more watts to work with in the system. Better cooling, just more watts allowed. And the 5070 Ti is very capable here, obviously. You're going to be getting 25, maybe even 30% higher performance, just depends where you're at. More VRAM as well to work with. Makes sense. It's a 5070 Ti. Big jump between the 5070 and the 5070 Ti. Okay, well, I guess that's that. Honestly, they're all good. They're all good. Get the one that fits your budget. Right, you can get all the way down from the AMD 260 with the 5050, and you can go all the way up to this one here, which is the Halo 255HX and the 5070. They're all good. This is my pick for gaming laptop of the year, honestly. It's just a really nice machine. So, the AMD CPUs are weaker, the 260 and the 350. The 350 is the weakest in, gaming, I guess, but doesn't really matter. The 260 is slightly faster, slightly less efficient. But in gaming, where you're looking at really what the 5050, 5060, 5070 can do anyways, they're just fine. It's not going to make any real-world difference in terms of gaming performance. The Intel 255HX does offer noticeably faster CPU performance in CPU-heavy tasks. So coding, video editing, Anything like that that's very CPU heavy, I mean, it is massively faster, twice as fast. So getting the 255HX is a boon. I have seen some periodically with 275HX, but I don't think it's necessarily worth it. The difference between the 255HX and 275HX is basically nothing. So if you want to have more of an all-rounder, sure, get the Intel one. It's going to give you that extra CPU performance. For someone like me who does video editing and that, it does help, actually. But it's not the biggest deal. They're all good CPUs. If prices are equal across the board, you're obviously going to spec it out as high as you can possibly go. The Intel chips are just better. Objectively, they are better chips. The other option, of course, is the GPU. 5050 is a good GPU. Honestly, it's a good GPU. You get good performance out of it. 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and for a budget offering, if you can get it for a really good price, you're not sacrificing any VRAM. They all have the same. It's just going to be slower, but it's still very good, especially with scaling. The 5060 I find is probably the sweet spot for a lot of people because it is a slight increase in price over the 5050. Not a lot, but you get a fairly noticeable performance bump, like 20-25%. And I've seen the 5060 models on sale a lot. Not so much with the Intel, but I've seen the AMD 260 with the 5060 on sale a lot. Like actually a lot. So that's probably the sweet spot for most people buying at that one because the price is very outstanding, and I see them all the time on sale. Of course, you can halo it up. You can go up to the 5070. If the 5070, I mean, you're then paying for the more expensive GPU. Personally, I mean, I find that the AMD 350 and the 255HX from Intel seem to be around the same price, and I would definitely recommend the Intel one. Again, if you can get the AMD one on sale for a couple $100 lower than Intel, go for that, because it's not going to make a big difference in gaming tasks. But this is the most future-proof because it has by far the best CPU, one of the best CPUs ever made. To be honest, it's such a good CPU, and it'll be good for many years to come. And then the GPU is just up to you. And I think they're all good, like 5050, 5060, 5070, they're all good. These are, I always prefer more VRAM, like 12 gigabytes in that, but I mean, these aren't the highest wattage systems anyways. You're looking at 80 to 100 watts on the GPU anyways. They're 15-inch laptop. Like, this isn't a big gaming laptop, like a 16-inch, 17-inch, 18-inch gaming laptop. So you're not chasing the best performance with something like this. So it's not like you're like, well, it doesn't have a 5070, 12 gigabytes, not 5070 Ti, 12 gigabytes, so I'm not going to buy it. Well, I mean, they're all good for what they are. In this segment, what they are, which is like super light, portable, 15-inch gaming laptops with good performance, good cooling, I think they're all good, honestly. This is my laptop of the year for sure. Gaming laptop of the year for sure. Is it actually just my laptop of the year? In the West, yeah. I still like the ThinkBook 14 Plus more, but for gaming, like for general laptops in the West, I think this is probably the pick of the year. They're just compelling price, and they're just like very upgradable. They're just good laptops. There's some negatives with them, like a little bit glossy, black chassis, not my favorite thing. They're not all metal, don't have the best speakers, but they're just that Goldilocks effect. They just offer really the most well-rounded package. So that's it there. I think they're great. If you want to get into them, hard to beat.